Ambassador Veldar of the Hegemony Council had witnessed the destruction of 17 worlds in his 8th-century lifespan. He had seen species incinerate their own homeworlds in nuclear fury, watched civilizations collapse under the weight of their own hatred, observed the systematic elimination of entire populations through calculated genocide. Nothing in his vast experience had prepared him for what he was witnessing now. The human colony on Kepler 442b lay in smoking ruins, its 3 million inhabitants reduced to ash and memory by the hegemony's pacification protocols. It should have been a routine suppression, another young species learning the price of expanding beyond their permitted boundaries. The operation had taken exactly 4.7 standard hours, executed with the cold precision that had maintained galactic order for millennia. What happened next defied every model in the hegemony's vast databases of species behavior. Captain Maria Santos stood in the command center of the human dreadnought Vindication, watching the tactical display with an expression that would have frozen plasma in its tracks. Around her, the bridge crew worked with mechanical precision, their movements sharp and economical. No one spoke above a whisper. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was the ominous quiet of a storm gathering strength. "Final scan confirms it," reported Lieutenant Commander Chen, his voice barely audible. "Kepler colony, gone. 3 million civilians. They didn't even attempt evacuation protocols before firing." Santos nodded once, a motion like the closing of a coffin lid. "Signal the fleet. All ships prepare for simultaneous fold space emergence at these coordinates." She transmitted target data for 18 separate hegemony installations across 3 sectors. "Ma'am," came a tentative voice from the communications station. "The hegemony is broadcasting demands for negotiation. They're offering reparations for what they call an administrative error." Santos turned, and every person on the bridge felt the temperature drop. "Administrative error?" She walked to the communications console with deliberate steps. When she spoke into the transmitter, her voice carried the weight of absolute conviction. "This is Captain Maria Santos of the Terran Defense Force. There will be no negotiations. There will be no reparations. You killed 3 million of our people in cold blood. Now you get to learn what happens when humans stop being polite." Ambassador Veldar felt his species' equivalent of a chill as the transmission ended. In his centuries of diplomatic experience, he had learned to read the nuances of alien emotions. What he heard in the human's voice wasn't rage, it was something far more terrifying. It was the sound of a species that had just stopped caring about consequences. "Sir," his aide reported, neural interface flickering with incoming data streams, "we're detecting massive human fleet movements. Every vessel in their space is converging on strategic positions around our installations. They're not following any recognizable attack pattern." Veldar studied the tactical displays with growing unease. The humans weren't massing for a conventional assault. Instead, their fleets were positioning themselves for what appeared to be simultaneous strikes across a front spanning half the galaxy. It was logistically impossible, strategically unsound, and completely insane. "How many ships?" he asked. "All of them, sir. Every military vessel humanity possesses moving to attack positions. They're abandoning all defensive postures, leaving their own worlds completely unprotected. It's as if they've decided to commit species-wide suicide just to hurt us." The first wave of human attacks came exactly 73 minutes after the initial transmission. 18 hegemony installations simply vanished. Not destroyed in conventional terms, obliterated so completely that their quantum signatures ceased to exist. The humans had weaponized technologies the hegemony barely understood, turning scientific advances into instruments of absolute annihilation. But that was only the beginning. Admiral Torres watched the tactical display aboard the flagship Retribution as the second phase commenced. Human ships weren't just attacking military targets, they were systematically destroying every hegemony presence they could reach, regardless of strategic value. Communication relays, scientific outposts, trading stations, diplomatic facilities, anything bearing hegemony markings, became a target for immediate termination. Sir, we're receiving surrender broadcasts from 47 hegemony installations. They reduced an entire human colony to atoms. Children were playing in those streets when the bombardment began. The time for surrender was before they decided to murder 3 million civilians. Continue the operation. Ambassador Valthar watched in horror as the human offensive expanded beyond all reason. They weren't fighting a war, they were conducting a systematic extermination campaign against everything the hegemony had built across 3 sectors. Worse, they were doing it with a methodical efficiency that spoke of long-term planning. How long have they been preparing for this? He demanded. Analysis suggests this operation was planned and rehearsed long before the Kepler incident, his tactical advisor reported. They call it the Glass Protocol, complete military mobilization in response to civilian casualties. Every human military commander apparently has sealed orders for this exact scenario. They plan to destroy themselves fighting us. No, sir. They plan to destroy us regardless of the cost to themselves. The protocol assumes total human military losses as an acceptable outcome if it achieves complete enemy elimination. The terrible revelation hit Veldar like a physical blow. Humans had looked at the vast, ancient power of the hegemony and decided that if they were going to die, they would drag their killers into extinction with them. It wasn't courage or heroism. It was the cold arithmetic of species-level revenge. By the end of the 4th day, the Hegemony Council was in complete collapse. 12,000 years of galactic dominance crumbled as human fleets systematically erased every symbol of their authority. The attackers ignored all attempts at negotiation, all offers of surrender, all pleas for mercy. They simply continued their methodical annihilation with the patience of geological processes and the fury of dying stars. Captain Santos stood on the bridge of the Vindication as they approached the hegemony capital world. Her crew had fought for 4 days without rest, sustained by stimulants and sheer determination. They looked like specters, pale and hollow-eyed, but their movements remained precise. Final target acquired, announced the weapons officer. The Hegemony Council convenes in 17 minutes. Sir, the communications officer called out, we're receiving a direct transmission from Ambassador Valthar. He's asking why we won't stop. Santos considered this for a long moment. Finally, she opened the channel. Ambassador, you killed 3 million human civilians without warning, without provocation, without mercy. You called it an administrative error. This is what happens when we're angry. This is what happens when you mistake human